Okay. We're almost all here, so I suggest we honor everybody's presence online on this late afternoon and start, and then I think one of our guests will join us momentarily. Welcome everybody. My name is Frank Uffen. I'm the Director of Partnerships of the Student Hotel, and I'm also co-founder of the think tank, the Class of 2020, which hosted around this time last year a session in Florence. I'd like to welcome you to the Student Hotel Education Webinar Series. I'm currently in Amsterdam, but I miss Florence terribly, so I hope to return very, very soon, now that it's becoming a little bit easier. But for the time being, I have selected our famous rooftop terrace as my background for this conversation to get me a little bit already in the spirit. But today we're here to discuss a very pressing topic, not just for Florence, but for the entire higher education community. And quite frankly, I think for many university cities around Europe at the moment. And that is the return of the international students and the mobility that we have all worked on so long. Today will be a conversation between local officials, university representatives, student housing providers, and education specialists. We have invited people from 3 schools that we believe are representative for the diversity of the Florence community. They are different types of school because there are so many different types of students also that come to Florence. And we have also invited some international experts, 2 in particular, to share how the European university landscape currently looks like and what are the best practices that Florence can learn from. Because I think this is a very important time to learn very, very fast from what's happening, and we need to be very agile. We're very honored that Mayor Dario Nardella wanted to join us to open the conversation, and for Marco Del Panta, City Councilman and Special Advisor to the Mayor on International Relations, Higher Education, European Policies and Investments, to also represent the city. Together, we are today here with more than, I believe, how many people do we have registered right now? More than 60 already online. A very great, diverse community of people that work in higher education, most of us in Florence. If you have any questions that you want to share or ask me or one of the panelists, please do so via the chat, which is on the lower base of your screen. And I will try to address them during our conversation. We should be wrapping up at 6:30 the latest. Before I see if the mayor is available to share some opening remarks, I hope you will allow me to share why we decided to host this webinar and why we seek to further our collaboration in this city among different institutions and stakeholders. For many students from around the world, Italy represents an opportunity to immerse in academically and culturally enriching programs. Since the 17th century, students have come here to develop themselves. Florence, with its history, glorious city life, and wide variety of higher education institutions was, and I believe will still be, one of the top destinations. I think Florence can be considered a true university city. It has more than 50 higher education institutions with close to 70,000 students. That represents more than 18% of the Florence population. About 12,000 of them are internationals, which makes it extra diverse. The impact and importance of these institutions and the talent they attract to the city and the Tuscan region cannot be overstated. Thousands of people work in higher education and the supporting industries. The Student Hotel Blavellini itself has over 80 full-time employees on site during the academic year. Talent is an incredible asset to cities. I think we all have understood that recently. I often compare today's universities to the car factory of the industrial times. They bring life, students bring life to the city. Their knowledge and ideas generate social innovation. They find jobs in the Tuscan economy or they start their own company. In Florence, students are our best ambassadors. They learn how to be curious, to become critical thinkers, to advocate for tolerance and democracy. They become representatives of the city's core values. And they do more. They are catalysts for visitors from around the world. I learned recently in Australia that the province of New South Wales calculated that every international student generates 9 international visitors. So in other words, their presence makes Florence flourish and our economy resilient. So in just a few months, we learned that we cannot take any of this for granted. Our campuses are closed, our museums and hotels and restaurants are empty, and we risk losing thousands and thousands of jobs. At the student hotel, we were impacted right away. We decided to stay open. All our locations in Europe are open, although many students were advised to go home and many of them left. Many of them left actually with leaving everything behind, but also many students stayed. So we've been taking care of those students. We make sure that they're okay, able to study online, not isolating themselves, ensuring that they had meals and online community activities. Our Florence team, headed by Salvatore Marmolado, and in particular my colleagues Andrea Adams, Michelle Davis, Luciana Spadina, and Andrea Tota, have been in close contact with many of you to make sure that we are able to deal with this together. Now we are preparing for the next academic year. We are reorganizing our common spaces, adapting our contracts so we can ensure that your students can feel and live here safe and well. We believe in Florence. We continue to work on our projects in Manifattura Tabacchi and Belfiore. At Belfiore, the construction has restarted, especially on the parking area underground. We have a local builder and we hope to have the 100 workers back on site in the next couple of weeks to complete the first phase. With the think tank, the class of 2020, we host a weekly insider session to share insights and discuss scenarios for recovery with university representatives and other student housing providers. We have learned that living and learning will be blended. All of us here have experienced firsthand how to study and work from our homes, sometimes even from our bedrooms when the kids are too loud. Experts predict that students are still excited about moving to cities like Florence, but they also say that the learning experience will be different. It will be a combination of on-campus activities when we can, and on-learning activities because we can. This means that our bedrooms and homes will become an integrated part of our campus. They will need to be a home that you can trust to be safe and run by people that you can rely on. So more than ever, we need to work together to make Florence again the best and most attractive place to study and stay. Today, we started by bringing stakeholders together to ensure exchange of best practices and exploring ways how we can help each other. During this time of uncertainty, how do we plan for the next year? How do we encourage to come and study here again? In what ways can city and regional officials help each other, us, higher education institutions, and others? How can we help each other? And what kind of examples can we be inspired by from around the world? I'm sure the mayor of Florence and the city representatives will agree that this is very important. I'm not sure if the mayor has joined us now. Andrea, can you maybe?
Ancora no.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, not yet.
I see the name.
He has joined us, but he has to accept the nomination as panelist. So Dario. There you go. Sorry, guys.
No problem. So we invited several experts today also to share some of those examples and also see how other cities are dealing with this unprecedented period. And I think it's in particularly symbolic that today we're not only talking as housing providers amongst each other or universities amongst each other, but that we also have city representatives all being part of the same conversation. And if the mayor would like to say a few things to open this webinar, I'm very curious to have your experience of Florence today. now that we're able to go out a little bit and meet each other again on the street, and what your ideas are, Dario, for how we can work together to make international and Italian students, for that matter, come back to Florence again. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you to you. Thank you to everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Very well.
Great, great. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to participate to this. First of all, I would like to give you local framework about the situation now and the perspective we have. For the big picture, we are working on a broader strategy, Rinasce Firenze, named Rinasce Firenze. I wanted to use this word, Rinasci, from Rinascimento, to reopen public administration spaces and services aimed to shape a new model of a sustainable city. We are already working together with the University of Florence to share implementing provisions regarding space and the classes, so to be ready when the ministry will give a green light to the reopening of all curricular activities. Mainly, we are working on strengthening the vocation of Florence as the city capital of research, culture, and higher education. The city of Florence has already taken charge of the coordination of all higher education institutes and schools. And we have a strategy with two directions. The first direction in the short period, I mean in the short period. In the short period, we have two topics. First goal is a personal letter on behalf of the mayor addressed to all directors of international universities and schools to inform them about the safety level of the city, because people want to know especially the safety level of the city and destination, of the destination. The details about phase 2, how the city is prepared to face it. The safety measures adopted by the city of Florence to implement the recovery plan and the level of readiness of the public healthcare system. Second goal in the short period is a package for all international students and the foreign student card to grant them benefits and discounts in theaters, sport events, museums, access, cultural events, etc. The second direction of our strategy is a long-term direction. And also in this second direction, we have several topics. The first one is a new urban plan to encourage investments on new international schools to be established in Florence. The second, we want to promote the use of buildings and the new spaces for educational activities and to facilitate agreements between proprietors and the foreign universities for students' housing. Third, tax benefits for investments on higher education facilities. Four is a new regulations to minimize bureaucracy and administrative proceedings. Five, a marketing campaign to promote Florence as a higher education destination, addressed to all the mayors of the main international cities with whom the city and the mayor have strong relations in order to develop higher education programs. For example, Beijing, Shanghai, Moscow, London, Paris, Berlin, New York, Philadelphia, Tel Aviv, and so on. Finally, an improvement of innovation and communication technologies in support of distance learning. So this is the framework and the strategy we are adopting, both on the short period and long period, and I hope should be useful for your activity and for your project and for your business. Thanks for the moment.
Wow, that's fantastic to hear, Dario. I mean, we started by this session by saying how important international education has been for Florence, basically already since the 17th century, since people always came to Florence to be inspired. But your plan is taking it also to another level, making it much more comprehensive about also attracting new institutions to the city and making it easier for students to come back. Thank you very much for that. This is really exciting to hear, and I think a fantastic start of this conversation. And what a beautiful name for it, of course, the rebirth.
Thank you.
How do you experience the city yourself at the moment? What is it a sense of relief, or is it still so much to worry about?
Yes, personally, as you know, probably, I was obliged to stay at home for the lockdown because I had a contact with a COVID-19 positive guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I passed 15 days alone, closed in my room. And for me, was heavy experience because if you have at home your family with your children, your wife, and you can't touch you can stay close today. It's not easy. But in general, I think the city of Florence have big energy and proud. It's a proud city with a proud community. You know, we had very crucial and dramatic experiences like Second World War and also the Arno River flood,
the flooding,
1966 flooding, and then also in 1997 the mafia bomb near to Uffizi, the Georgophyli attack. So we passed all these experiences, this dramatic moment, with a big energy and unite as a strong people. So I believe in the future. I know that we must pass this next 3-4 months very heavy, difficult moment, but at the end we will reach again a good level about tourism, about business activities, etc. Because as you know, we have a good infrastructures, we have good international relations, we have a real positive image in the world, and I'm sure that people will become to visit Florence as soon as possible after the health emergency.
Yeah, I think today we will hear some, not only from me, but also from some of the experts, that probably can be true if the city is ready and if of course the regulations allow this and when it's of course safe again. I'm impressed with what you described, your personal experience. I think not many of us had it so close in their own environment as you did. And I can imagine that it must also be incredible to see the city now with new eyes. I'm very grateful for your words and also your plan to look to the future. I think this will encourage us very much, and I hope you can stay on for a little bit, because I would love to introduce our first expert. And she comes from a city that is also a true university city, a very different type of city, but with a different history, but at the same time very vital and resilient because of its education institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Michelle Stewart. Michelle, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. You're the Vice President of the European Association of International Education and responsible for the internationalization at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, Scotland. You have two very challenging roles at the moment. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you can, why you have also chosen this photo of the building behind you, because I'm sure it has something to do with the city where you are right now.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you to everyone on the panel and those attending for inviting EAIE to join this session. The picture I've selected is the Royal College, one of Strathclyde's oldest buildings, dating back to 1910. And I chose this image because it's on George Street, which connects to George Square, and that is where we have the equivalent of our city council. I worked there for the equivalent of the mayor for some time. We call them the Lord Provost in Glasgow. And the reason I selected it was because Strathclyde was, I think in the 60s, invited to move to a greenfield site. And we made the decision to not do that because we wanted to remain connected to the city, connected to industry. And this is something that really is part of, we call it Strathclyde's DNA. And it's relevant to what I'll say later on. And as you said, Frank, yes, I have two roles. I'm the Vice President of the EAIE, and there we were working on our conference, which attracts 6,500 people normally. It was pushed back to October, and now we've had to announce that we won't be going to Barcelona, but a bit like most people, we are now trying to move to an online event, and we'll be announcing more about that later. Despite all the turmoil, we're also working on the launch of our strategy for 2020 and beyond. And again, one of the things that we're doing is attending and also offering webinars like these to support the community, to inform people on best practice, share ideas. I think that's really important at this time. And in my role at Strathclyde, I'm the Director of Internationalisation for the Faculty of Humanities. And that's all about partnerships to support student mobility, student recruitment, mainly in Europe for student mobility, but also North America. And the thing that connects both of those two roles at the moment is this need to gather as much information as possible. There's a lot of uncertainty, to gain insights, to share ideas, and to try and prepare for the future, which is the focus of today. And the key thing to all of this, I was in a webinar last week and someone said the policies will be national, but the solutions will be international in terms of the need to collaborate. So that's where I am at the moment, yeah.
Great. So speaking of those key developments, what do you see is currently shaping the academic year for universities across Europe?
I think, well, the barrier to shaping it is still this level of uncertainty. But I think what is emerging, as you said, Frank, and others have said, is that we will be in a sort of blended learning mode, and we'll have to adapt to that. I think one of the key things, a development, is the need to project confident communications around health security. Otherwise, people will be very reluctant to travel to any city where you're not able to do that. And I think another key thing in terms of international mobility will be the ease of travel. So first of all, you have travel restrictions, And then potentially we're hearing more about the cost of travel and whether or not that could be a limiting factor for, if you like, some international students coming from, you know, more distant destinations. And I think for people in the sort of recruitment and marketing role, it's about being clear about the offering. If it is blended learning, what will that look like? What are the price points? And as we move through the different, if you like, stages of gathering information, is the need to be flexible and creative in our response.
Yeah, yeah. And do you also see that what the members of the AAA are sharing with you, that also they're optimistic about the coming year? Because we see also some universities now announcing that they will not have international students on their campuses in the next first or second semester even. I think Oxford University made a big announcement this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that's the only university I've heard of that's really gone in quite a dramatic direction, and they maybe have different reasons for doing that won't be shared by other universities. I think other universities are looking more at blended in the first semester and then face-to-face from certainly January. And again, you have different variations for local students. And again, going back to my point about being able to travel into a city. Yeah. So I think it's a complex environment. But yeah, I think by and large, people within the EEIE are optimistic because we've shown in the sector, I think, a fair degree of resilience to get on with the job. At my own university, it's very much business as usual, whether that's online and then a phased return to face-to-face.
That's nice to hear. Yeah, optimism does at least drive us, or unite it in some ways, at the moment in particularly. But I believe also the numbers are starting to look up, but we will talk a little bit more about Garrett that has insight into to which extent students are still looking for international students' experiences at the moment. I was also curious about your response to the remarks that the mayor made about the collaboration in the city and his plan. You're based in Glasgow. You also mentioned the leadership there. Can you say a little bit more about how universities, city, and other stakeholders collaborate in Glasgow, and if this can be a model for others?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very much as though in Florence they're quite far ahead in their thinking, but I might just share a little bit about the Glasgow experience. And I think it's fair to say that the Glasgow challenge is very different to the Florence challenge. I think people have been traveling to Florence. It's a beautiful city, and Glasgow's challenge was quite different. We had a different job to do, and if you like, changing people's perceptions of the city. But we did have a very slick, if you like, destination marketing bureau set up to mainly attract tourists to the city. And there was a real, not a real, but a certain disconnect between the need to use their expertise in terms of destination marketing and use it to promote the city. And the Strathclyde's principal had set up a thing called the Glasgow Economic Leadership Forum, which was really about some of the big challenges impacting the city around smart cities and fintech and climate change and all of these different things. But they recognised that there was also something that we were missing in terms of shared collaboration in relation to the promotion of the city. And so a group was set up, chaired by Rachel Sanderson from the University of Glasgow, and it included all the local universities, city marketing, and the city council. And what they did was they started to share assets in terms of those being used by the marketing bureau to attract tourists, to then really position the city as a place for work and study and conferences and for people to come and do research. And that was actually started in 2014, and it's still going on even now. So before this meeting, I dropped a note to one of the members to say, how are the plans going in terms of preparing to promote the city now? And he said, yes, they're already working on that. So it's been very, very effective. I think the secrets to success are laid out in a blog that Rachel wrote for EAIE, and I'll share this with the group after the meeting. But she set out a kind of 8-stage plan in terms of how to make it work. But the key thing is to get senior buy-in. So someone like the mayor of the city, bringing in the key stakeholders, and those stakeholders being the senior people within those universities, dedicating resources. But as I say, it sounds to me as though a lot of that work has been done, but certainly for Glasgow, it's been hugely important and very effective.
That's great to hear. And thank you very much for offering to share that. I think it will be very, as you said, helpful also to Florence. I think the ambition of what the mayor described is very high, but also this form of collaboration is not everywhere as common. So it will be good to see what others are doing now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michelle. If, with your permission, I will introduce the next expert who focus a little bit more on the numbers and especially on the demand side. Gerrit Bruno Blus, are you?
Hello.
There you are. Founder and CEO of Study.eu, a study choice platform that lists English taught programs in Europe with a global audience of prospective students. Like Michelle, you were also one of the guest speakers at the Class of 2020 education sessions, providing insights into students' online behavior, and particularly what they are looking for right now. So we're very happy that you wanted to join us today to share what you see currently, and in particularly what are the key trends and recommendations that you have for Florence and the Florence-based institutions.
First off, thank you, Frank.
Yeah, sorry. First, I wanted to ask you, what are we looking at? Is this your backyard, your garden, or what? Tell us.
Yeah, so this is where I live. No, so I like the idea that you made everyone choose a sort of symbolic photo, and I picked the new opera in Hamburg. And it has a symbolic value for what we're talking about, because this building has sparked a new tourist interest in Hamburg. And Hamburg was even listed by the New York Times as one of the top 10 places to visit, I think in 2019, partly because of the new building. It's really impressive. It's really close to the city center. It draws a lot of attention. What people outside of Hamburg don't really know is the pain that we as locals had, because it went over budget by 900 million euros. Locals like myself have very mixed feelings about this opera. Other people don't see it, so they still want to go. And this is kind of reflective of what we see in the student mobility sector, in the sense, a little bit different, but in the sense that, okay, students are aware that there's a pandemic, but that doesn't change the fact that they still want to go abroad. They still want to experience firsthand other countries, other cultures, and ideally classrooms. What we're looking at probably for the foreseeable future is that the classroom experience will be different, but we hope that at least the mobility part, that people get immersed in a different setting, in a different country, that will come back. And it looks like it will at least next year. So this year is tricky because everywhere there will be visa issues. There will have been application issues. Some people do not have their documents. So this is a very difficult year for everyone, not just within student mobility, but as many other sectors, we are affected. But the interest is still there. So as the other voices we've heard today, what I can share from our perspective is a message of hope. So we do see numbers that are stable, and we do see that the student interest really has gone down in March. People were occupied with reading the news. Everyone wanted to know what the situation is. Yeah. But it seems like now that the dust has settled a bit and normality is returning, at least in Europe to some extent, we see it picking up again. Students are looking again for degree programs abroad and exchange programs as well.
Great. You had some data sets that you also could share. Is this possible with
Yeah, so we tested it earlier. I have a few slides to give you an impression of what we are seeing at the moment. So let me share the screen. So can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is the interest in Italy as a study destination on study.eu. And that is also a little bit in comparison to other countries. And as you can see, this is the past sort of 18 months. As you can see, the graph has been relatively stable and has actually grown over the past 9 months. And there's a very visible dip when essentially when the WHO started using the word pandemic.
Mm.
And it's coming back now. So we're at the previous level, which is even higher than what we've seen in 2019.
Mm.
And Italy has always been one of the countries that users, at least on study.eu, were really interested in. And we have to put this in perspective. So we only cater to users that want to study degree programs in English, but usually it's also, you can transfer the data, the insights that we have to exchange programs and other programs as well. So as you can see, it's recovered already. The interest is at a very high position, and Italy is on, if you sort the countries by popularity on the site, Italy is on rank 6. It's actually at the moment more popular than France, which used to be a different situation about a year ago. And this is a very, very good position for Italian education providers to grow from if there wasn't the pandemic as we have it now. So this year, again, it will be difficult, but medium term, this is a very comfortable position. The interest is there. As long as you are able to address the demand in some form, students will want to come.
Okay.
And this is just data from our end. So if I'm telling you, okay, we're confident that this crisis will be over and it will not have any long-term damage, you might say, good, your SunChoice platform, it's just a small piece of the overall trends. But we also looked at Google Trends. So what you're seeing here is the graph that shows the interest in keywords like study in Italy and universities in Italy. And this is over the last 5 years. This has been trending upward just generally as a long-term trend. So Italy as a study destination is growing. And that's, by the way, been very similar for other continental European destinations as well.
Yeah.
As more and more English language programs have become available and it's become more popular to look outside of, for instance, the UK, but stay within Europe. And as you can see here, where you see the red dashed line, so there was a spike in interest. There's always a few spikes on Google per se, but what we don't see, there is a dip, but it's not atypical to other dips prior to that. So if one was scared about demand on the student side, we would have expected this to drop to 0, right?
Yeah.
It didn't do that at all. It will recover. And I wouldn't even go as far as saying there's any effect whatsoever on student interest on this graph. So we've seen a dip on our site. Google Trends seems to be very, very positive looking for everyone. So I would say next year, we might not be back to normal levels, because obviously at the moment, we are struggling with the pandemic itself and what that means for student mobility right now.
Yeah.
Next year, we will be struggling with economic fallouts in the countries that are most affected. That's very hard to predict.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you look at the financial crisis of 2009, there was also a surge in higher education demand, particularly at business schools, but throughout the sector. Because what happens is you have people that might not be able to work in their industry in the short term, and they will be looking especially for postgraduate options. So this is what we expect to rebound next year at some point.
Yeah. So to summarize this also, like this what I also said earlier and what we heard in the previous sessions with European universities, that the appetite to study is still there. Also, a lot of people apply for universities, we hear, but they might delay their decision based on the local conditions, but they are looking to postpone, not to cancel.
Absolutely. I think very few people are so excited about Zoom that they want to shift their study abroad plans altogether and just say, okay, I'm doing an online degree. I think the blended route, that's going to be the way forward for 2021. Eventually, we will hopefully have a vaccination so that the experience will be similar to what it was before. I think also that the impact of blended learning will just change teaching on the delivery of courses as it is anyway. But at the moment, blended learning will just be a necessity because we can't have 500 people in a lecture hall at the moment. It doesn't work.
Any recommendations that you have also based on your insights for institutions like the ones that we have here today from Florence?
Yeah, so I've summarized that in another slide because, you know, a message of hope isn't enough if you need to find short-term solutions or medium-term solutions. So there are 3 key points that we want to emphasize here. One is that even though demand is stable, you should address health and safety concerns. And this is not necessarily directed at the students. I can actually quote an intern that we had here over the past few months. And she, I don't know if that's a recipe for everyone, but she said, well, if you're afraid to go abroad, don't go abroad. Okay, that's one way to go about this. But more seriously, you want to address maybe the parents.
Yeah.
And you also want to explain, because that's difficult to understand in any country.
Yeah.
Probably the same in Italy as in Germany or elsewhere. You want to explain the healthcare system. You want to explain how insurances work. You want to very explicitly go into, okay, you know, what happens if I get sick? Like, what's the procedure? This is something that students and their parents do now expect.
Yeah.
Not every provider is doing a very good job at the moment, but we have done an analysis that showed that across Europe, 99% of all university websites mentioned the pandemic or corona or some variation of the term.
Yeah.
So people know about this, people do address it. But just long term, when the pandemic maybe isn't so much of a factor immediately, people still will want to know, okay, am I going to be safe there? The interesting thing about this is also safety is usually a concern before people depart. When you do surveys of students that have spent a semester somewhere, safety is no longer really that exciting to them because they realize, okay, I've spent half a year in Florence and I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Right. So it's always more daunting and seems more dangerous than it actually is.
Sure.
The second point that we would make is that you should communicate the return on investment that your education program delivers. This is a very business-like term, and it doesn't really apply to or it doesn't really appeal to programs maybe that are more in the fine arts, but still, what I mentioned earlier, there will be an economic impact because of the pandemic. It's really hard to predict this. It will also be very regional in some instances. Italy is a very affordable country compared to many other destinations. And even at private providers, the pricing is very affordable in comparison to some high-priced countries like the US. And there are very good financial reasons to pick that. What data has shown also about the financial crisis was that students, and interestingly, studies showed that especially for male students, but you know, it might apply differently this time, is they will increasingly look for the return on investment, and factors like employability will play a key role.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of institutions are already very good at this, but if you feel that your students do not see a clear path to what the value of a program will be to their career, this is something you could update, and very easily so. To, like, as just one action item one could have is include alumni in your communication. In the UK, this works very well at a lot of universities because it helps you paint a picture what students, graduates have done after they have been at your institution. This is more relevant, obviously, to degree programs, not so much to exchange programs.
Sure.
But if you're offering degree programs, paint the picture for the students. Show them what other graduates have done, where they have gone, include them in the communication. And lastly, and this is a bit of a bigger point, but still very, very important because it's central actually, even though it takes more of an effort, is we are all in a new situation. We know that demand will be relatively stable, if not growing at some point. Providers will need to align their marketing strategies to this. One example I wanted to make here is you could check your portfolio of study programs or exchange programs and see how that might meet or not meet yet upcoming demand. And this goes back to the example I mentioned about the financial crisis, when there was a surge in interest for business school programs, because in the beginning it was mostly bankers and people in the financial industry that lost their jobs. What we expect here, it's very early with numbers, of course, but what we expect is that people in the hospitality and tourism industry will have a hard time over the coming 12 to 18 months. And we think that there will be demand specifically for hospitality programs. So for instance, if you are offering programs in the business, already have something in any relation to hospitality or tourism, see if you can specifically address this demand that might be surging. There might be others. It's very difficult to predict this, but you need to check your portfolio, maybe, you know, change curricula here and there, maybe offer a new program that's slightly different from other programs you've done in the past, but still works with your strengths. And the other thing that goes in the demand direction.
Yeah.
Even though we see that globally demand will be strong, you shouldn't rely on niche markets. So if previously you've relied on a handful of countries to recruit students, you are in a bad position if those happen to be countries where the economic fallout of the pandemic will be particularly bad. Yeah. So you should see what actions you could take to maybe abstract from that a bit. If, for instance, you've been very strong within Europe and the Balkans, maybe you can take a step back and, you know, instead of just focusing on Croatia and countries in that area, maybe you can widen your scope and go to markets in all of Eastern Europe. Yeah. Or if you've relied on one Asian country, maybe you can use your efforts that you've done there, see if you can attract students from other countries in the region.
That's interesting. And there's also, I guess, what the mayor mentioned, the international campaign that they are developing also to align with that, the markets that Florence has a strong position at the moment.
Yeah, and the list of cities that he named, I think that's it's a good variety of markets, yeah. A good variety of regions, and they will all be hit in one way or another, but they will not all be equally hit. So some of those cities and regions will recover very fast, others might not. And if you don't rely on just one or two particular markets too much, then you'll be in a much stronger position.
Sure. Great. Thank you very much for this moment, Gerrit. I would love to move on now to the Florence panel, in particular to hear also what they are working on right now, but also maybe already their first response to some of what you and Michelle and also the mayor have shared. Danilo, may I start with you?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, everybody.
I mean, you don't have to explain to me which building is behind you, but I think maybe some others will be curious. Tell us where are you sitting in front?
This room is my office, actually. That is the Villa Favar. It's the headquarters of Polimoda, and it's right beside the consulate of US city center, quite close to railway station. And it's one of the three facilities because we have this Villa Favar for the headquarters and business courses, but also a facility in Scandicci outside Florence in the production areas, actually where the first year productions of big groups are happening. So, I mean, LVMH or Richemont or Kering, we are talking about these groups. And then we have a third one, which is quite new, and we are neighbors there because it's in Manifattura Tabacchi, and it's really, really brand new with all the machineries you need for doing a proper fashion design. So
Yeah.
Polimoda is a fashion design school, but also fashion business school. It's half and half, and it's undergraduate, postgraduate, and short courses all together now, but divided in different facilities in normal times.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's about the percentage of students that is coming from abroad?
Well, it's 74% of our students are non-Italians, so they come from abroad, and 26 are Italians. So majority of students are foreigners. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And how is it to move a fashion curriculum online? Is that possible, or do you have to adjust the curriculum?
Well, actually, in the short term, it's possible, and we did it. Consider that immediately after the declaration of a pandemic, we moved all classes online. Let's say 80% of our classes online, which means more than 1,000 hours teaching per week. And it's possible because business courses, art direction courses, and the theoretical side of fashion design courses can be easily moved online. What you can't really move online is the laboratory. So, and this is the plus of a fashion school like Polimoda, because it's completely reproducing the laboratories that you have in the industry. So this is not possible to be attended during a pandemic. It's quite obvious. So this will be postponed. It's not canceled. It's just postponed.
Okay. And do you see any changes already in the demand or the questions that you receive from prospective students to that regard, or is it most?
Well, let's say that students are not canceling. The demand is very similar. There's a bit of decrease unexpectedly in the Italian market, but not from foreigners. Foreigners are still asking for courses, and they subscribed for October, and numbers are quite similar to the last year. So if we have a drop, we have it in Italy. And yeah, what they ask is obviously if it will be possible to come in person, but they are also ready to attend the school for the first months online, and maybe coming in January, I mean, second semester. They know it already, they expect it. What is good is that they are not canceling, they're not giving up, they want to come. And this is the one of the possibilities, because in the meantime, we also developed online courses, 100% online courses, which are on sale now. But I think a fashion school can live only if laboratories are open to make it complete and to make it also, relevant from the point of view of employability. You know that Polimoda has a very high employability rate. It's 92% in few months, 6 months, let's say, means that our students can find a job quite easily. But this is possible only because during school, they really learn to do things. Polimoda is a strange animal. It's in between a university or a college, if you want, with the same, visionary appeal, but it's also a bit vocational because it's a lot about hands-on materials, working on materials, doing a proper fashion show in the end of your course. So what we need here, and I take advantage of having the mayor here with us, which is say hello, hey, ciao, is also a shareholder of the school. So what we need here is to understand that schools like Polimoda, and I would say not only Polimoda, but mainly Polimoda, is Yeah, it's a school, so it has to stay under the rules of the schools. So when they say you would be able to open on October, most probably, as all schools will open in October.
Yeah.
But it's a hybrid. It's also a bit of industry. Polimoda is not just a school, because laboratories, for example, our laboratories in Scandici, but also the new ones in Manifattura Tabacchi, are completely identical to those of the industry. So the industry is opening. At the seaside, people go and tan, but they cannot go to a fashion school. So it's quite strange, you know?
Hmm.
So this is quite normal because it's coming from national rules, you know? National rules are saying, yeah, you are a school, you're just a school, you open when schools open. But it's not just a school, it's part of the industry, and it's quite a strange animal.
Yeah.
You know? So this should be taken and to be considered as a point, not only for Polimoda, but also for fashion schools around the world. I know that my colleagues in London have the same problem. So
Yeah, I can imagine, but I think this is also great indeed to convey this message, but also to share maybe how others are dealing with that. I mean, I guess one of your advantages is with all this space to also maintain this 1.5 meter distance and still have an on-campus experience, or is that also a challenge for you?
no, that is quite easy for us
No.
because having 3 facilities and having just opened a new one of 6,000 square meters, it's quite easy for Polimoda to do that. And if you consider the space you have in between machines, well, that is the space. So not difficult.
That's really good. I think for the mayor, maybe also one of the possibilities also at short term to provide empty spaces or vacant spaces in the city to universities and other institutes that maybe don't have that luxury of space that you have.
That is a good idea, yeah. Because we have so many buildings, old buildings, what we call palace,
Yeah.
which are wonderful, you know, really, really wonderful. And it makes the difference. And we can make them alive and you can make them live again with new technology inside. It's a
Great.
dream.
Great.
Yeah.
Any remarks or things that you based on the previous speakers that you wanted to respond to before I move to Georgia?
Yeah, I think if cities that are, you know, the center of an education system today, yeah, for sure, in the short term, they should market themselves somehow. But basically, this is a great occasion. It's a great occasion to sometimes change paradigm because education is a cultural form of tourism. And the cultural form of tourism requires, you know, that you have the environment, that you have music, contemporary art, technology, facilities for staying, the possibility for coming and not, you know, having a problem with a visa or stuff. So it's a great occasion to a renaissance somehow. So to make cities, not only Florence, but all the cities that, you know, have education, to
Mm-hmm.
make it new, to make it fresh, to make it next level, next generation. So yeah, let's work in short term to communicate what we can do now, we can offer, and we keep on offering. Fine, but let's take also the occasion for the long-term vision. Like
Yeah.
the mayor said, you know, in the beginning, he said this is also a possibility to do something more with the city, and that is the way, I think.
Great. Thank you very much for that, for highlighting that opportunity and the need to have parallel tracks, short term and long term.
Yeah.
Georgia, hi.
Hi.
How are you? Do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think that Marco will speak about that, but
Right.
there is something important that we have been doing, and this started even before Marco joined the mayor, which is we have a board of internationalization of the city of Florence, where university is part of it, but we also work together with industries, with firms, with Confindustria, Confartigianato, a lot of institutions. And that's at the basis of the idea of Florence as city of higher education and knowledge. So I think that is very, very important. And all our cooperation has been so far very successful. And not only we cooperate with the municipality, but we also try to extend it to the region. And for instance, as university, we cooperate with Pisa and Siena, which is where the other two big universities are. And we find that cooperation always wins. So we are very much for cooperation and organizing things together. And I agree that that's the way to have a renaissance of Florence,
Right.
the birth of Florence.
Because for those that don't know you, you're one of the people that work at one of the largest universities in Italy, with a great variety of programs, different locations in the city as well. How have you, are you in one of the, I mean, your background photo, is it one of the university offices?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That's the window. Actually, I choose this because this is a window of the Department of Architecture, which has just been restored. And you can see both the dome of Firenze, but also the synagogue. Yeah, I think it's behind me, the synagogue. And this is also because I want to give the idea that Florence is also so multicultural. So I choose it on purpose because we want to have this multiculturality. We really want to show that we are very inclusive as a town. And that's one of the messages that we are also giving with our Board of Internationalization. And we have been working, and I think this is an experience which is unique in Italy. Only Venice has so far something closer to a Board of Internationalization, but not advanced as we are. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to show how international and how multicultural we are. And now we actually have been thinking about this model of Florence as a higher education capital much before the COVID. Yeah. So we have been working on that together with Marco, exactly on a model which is a different model. And so we are a little bit ahead, I suppose, I hope, with respect to other towns which were hit by the COVID-19 crisis without having planned something ahead.
Yeah. And this idea of blended learning, does that still fit in there, or do you feel that there's a major shift from what you have been anticipating as future trends in higher education?
Well, of course, when we were anticipating this, we were not thinking of blended modality. Of course, we had everything in class, but we were very fast as university, and we have 55,000 students, so we are a large university. We were very fast to move towards the online distance learning. And I think it has worked all right. We have been in touch with the students. The one we have been more in touch with are actually the international students, because they are the ones who could suffer more for a distance learning. I just had some videos that we organized, and we're going to put, I think in these days, in the webpage of university, interviewing international students about their experience on distance learning, and they were all very happy about it. They said that it worked very well. Now for next fall, what we are trying to do is we would like to have blended modality, but especially what we are trying to do is to have the university ready to have the first year student in class, not distance, and the master student in class. It's particularly important to have the first year student in class because those are the ones that have a change from the high school education to university, the system change. So that the one that will need more to integrate with the school, with the other people attending. So we are trying to look, the president is now doing a review of all the rooms that we have and to see how can we adjust to have at least the first year and the master student in class according to all the safety and health rules and whatever.
That's very interesting. So you focus on certain groups and to do the offline experience.
That's the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll see, because I mean, as Michelle was saying, there is a very high uncertainty.
Yeah.
And of course, we have to see. But if it's possible, that is what we will like to do. We are counting the number of seats that we can use and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I mean, for Danilo, we reopened the lab in University of Florence because also for us, for instance, for architecture, they are very important, the labs, but also for science and for medicine. So those have been just reopened. Again, with a certain number of people that can attend, not everyone. We have at the moment 1/3 And from next week will be 2/3 of the students will be allowed, 2/3 of the capacity of the room or the lab could go.
Okay, so for the time being, you're accepting also student applications and you're anticipating on receiving exchange students as well for the next year.
I agree totally with Garrett, what he was saying. I can confirm what he was saying.
Yeah.
The number of applications we have had are in line. Actually, they are slightly higher than last year for international students. Now, the problem with international students is, was mentioned before, is a problem of visa.
Yeah.
Because the embassy in Italy are closed. I think you mentioned this problem. The embassies are closed, so it's difficult to get visa. So we are trying to see whether we can do something at the Italian level. Again, cooperating with the vice president of all the other universities in Italy, we have been in touch with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to see whether we can anticipate a little and just enroll the students. And then one thing that we are going to do is, even if we have classes, all of them are going to be also recorded, and we are going to keep a repository of all the recording, so that if someone wants to come but is not able to come because of visa, because of the mobility or the airplane or something, can actually start attending at the distance, and at the same time when he comes he can go in class if his class is actually in person. So we are getting prepared to different modalities.
Yeah. But this visa issue is something, it's a bottleneck that keeps coming up in conversations across Europe as well, and I think it's very important to keep sending that message indeed to Rome or Brussels or anywhere it needs to hear it. But maybe there's also, I heard also about some ways around it, of maybe offering shorter programs or adjusting so people can come on a tourist visa. Is that something that you're considering as well within the blended form?
Well, we can't. That is something that the American universities in Florence are doing. They are shortening the number of weeks for next term, or some American universities, as far as I know. Yeah. But we can't, because we are not flexible in that respect. Okay. So we have an academic year. We can start a little bit later maybe, but those kind of things are fixed. Yeah. So we cannot say we shorten the term. And also, we cannot accept people without a visa and then after 3 months say, you actually don't have your permit of stay, you have lost 3 months and the money.
Yeah.
We cannot afford that.
Yeah. That's the value question also that Gerrit raised. Yeah, great. So if I summarize, you are also very optimistic about the long-term prospect for Florence, for your university. Specifically, you see still strong demand. Is that, does it come from specific regions at the moment? Do you see some trends there that are maybe different from the years before?
The one that I've seen are, of course, the one mostly for the courses in English and in the economics department. And those come from several regions. So we don't have a specific region. And I mean, I have to say that what Garrett was saying is exactly what we have been doing. We have been advertising for the the health and the safety, trying to address the health and safety concern of the students and of the parents. But here there is one issue which is absolutely important, which also relates to the Erasmus student, and is that health should be considered as a public good and should be the same, treated in the same way in Europe, and possibly in the UK as well, Michelle, despite Brexit. I think we have had problems now with the Erasmus student, our student outgoing in some countries. The Italian health system is a good system, but the card has not been recognized by some countries. And I think this is something that should be raised because it's very, very important. It's important for people that come here to know what they can expect, and it's important for people that go out. But anyway, the Italian health system is good, and in Tuscany, I think is even better than, I mean, Careggi in Florence is one of the best hospitals in Italy.
Sure.
So I think we can advertise for that.
Yeah, that's it's actually a really reassuring aspect of life and studying in Florence.
And for the aligning the market strategy that Garrett was saying, I think you mentioned that we should adjust the portfolio for the sort of upcoming demand as a suggestion. What we are doing with the Board of Internationalization is we are doing a study to look at the mismatch of skills and qualification on the territory. And what the idea we have is to try and adjust the courses, the program that we do according to what are the requirements of the territory. Not that we change completely our offer, of course, but for instance, if we see that there is a request in the agri-food sector, in the environmental sector, and we try and see what are our qualification on one hand and our skill, I mean, our student qualification and our student skills, which is different somehow, and whether they match the demand from the firms. Of course, what we did so far is on the demand of firms up to last fall. So it's slightly different because some firms like tourism is one of the firms which was requiring skills and demand, and we had to adjust to that. Now there are problems with the sector which is badly hit. So we really have to reinvent something in order to match what will be the future demand.
Sure.
That is something that we were thinking of doing anyway, and we are doing it anyway.
Yeah, great. I have one last question more from a personal interest, but there's also other people from student housing companies on this call. Anything for us that we can do for your students and for your institute to take in consideration as we prepare for the next year?
As you know, and Andrea knows, I've always been very much in favor of having some stricter contact and an agreement with the student hotel, which I really like. So I think one thing for our students to address the concern of financial and also to go in line with communicate value for money, maybe to make some offers for the next term to make it competitive also with the rental that they can find. Of course, the rents of the university, the region university housing are very, very low, but they do not accommodate all our students, or the majority of the student is out. So I think we can go on with an agreement. I'm sure that the student hotel has a lot of things that will be very good, like the medical service, like the bicycle. I mean, all these kind of things should be advertised better because there will be a plus for students looking for accommodation.
Great. Thank you very much for that advice, and we will also, based on your feedback and the insights from people like Gerrit, to adjust our messages where needed, and to continue to work with you and the other schools. But I'm very happy that there are also other providers on this call, because I think for students to have choice in the city of Florence is very important, and it has been very difficult in the past for some groups. So we hope there's at least some more air right now. With your permission, I would love to move on to Fabrizio. With a spectacular background. I've been admiring it from the beginning. Maybe a first introduction, Fabrizio, and a reaction to what has been said so far.
My love for the background I have is determined by the love I have for the city, evidently, and by my profession, because by trade I'm a professor of Renaissance history. Now I'm leading Kent State University Florence, but my first love is for history. So thanks first of all for having invited me, Andrea, and you, Frank. And there are many things that can be raised from what I've heard until now. Evidently, I can start from the beginning of the crisis, which has been determined, as you well know, by the increasing of the level of alerts from the White House in the US at level 3 at the beginning of March. In more or less 3-4 days, around 13,000 American students in the Accopy world. And tonight I won't talk about Accopy, I won't represent really Accopy, I will share with you my case study as Kent State University Florence director, has been repatriated, almost in a week, let's say. And the reasons for that has been determined by, evidently, the risks which have been underlined by all of us by the COVID-19, and not resolution to the problem, in other words. Now, how can we have the students back? I have to go straight to my case studies to Kent State. So Kent State won't have any fall semester students. So we have canceled already the fall semester. And so this means that we won't have in-person teaching at Kent State University Florence in via Cavour 26. And all the structure, I usually offer 86 courses at Kent State Florence with around 65 faculty, will be turned online. So everything will be taught in remote way, some of them online, some remote, because there is a difference between the two. And I go back to what I've heard, I don't remember if from Danilo from Polimoda. So the big risk of recording yourself is that it can be substituted by the machine in the long run. So that's the problem, not for everyone, but for some of the students. So in other words, our priority is trying to have the students back and of course go back to the in-person teaching. Now the problem is the following: why Kent State has decided from the beginning of May not to offering the full term? So in other words, I'm already working to the spring semester. Hopefully we'll be able to have students in the spring. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've read Higher Education yesterday, but Cambridge University announced that they will cancel all classes until July 2021. So in other words, all classes will be offered in a remote way, so not in present students. And they will select part of the students in seminars because keynote lectures will be given online, and students will be like shared in groups and have in-person discussions with the instructors according to the distances imposed by the rules of the healthcare. Mm. So this is another very important information which impacts on us, evidently, because I'm not representing ACUPI tonight, but ACUPI is a big association with 160 programs in the country, considering that we have 38,000 North American students joining Italy every year, with the revenue generated on the country, which has been calculated by the IRPET study in 2013, with around 600 million euros per year. And this was like 5 years ago. Yeah. So, and it has increased, the numbers have increased and so on. So it's a big impact on the country. Yeah. But of course, the example of Kent State can be, can have a domino effect on many other institutions, because at the moment in the US, passports are not delivered. Yeah. So there are practical problems for not having students in the country at the moment. So passports are not delivered, and our US consulates are suspending operations because of COVID-19.
So are you saying you have a lot of external challenges as well that impact your planning, or are you also looking at ways around that by adjusting the program?
I'm simply saying that we don't have any answer to these questions at the moment, and the plan for the fall was at the end of April, beginning of May. We are too late. Yeah. We are too late, and you will see that in the following weeks, also my colleagues from other institutions will share the same information with all of us. So in other words, we need to go straight to the spring semester. That's my suggestion. Let's start to be ready for the spring, because it's already late for the spring as well. Yeah. And we need to give answers. What kind of answers I'm talking about? First of all, we need to have answers from the university system in Italy, the MIUR. So we need to know when the institutions will reopen. Mm. And of course, we need to know when the quarantine for American students in theory will be suspended, because if in June the 3rd will be, hypothetically speaking, the reopening of the Schengen area, then we'll have the problem of what kind of problems should a Kent State student have if he or she will arrive in Europe. So do we have the same treatment as we have today? Mm. And the other very important information, which is crucial for all of us as legal representatives of branch institutions in the country is, when will we be authorized to travel in the country? When our students will be able to make field trips?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm sharing what we do at Kent State. We have around 900 students per year. So it's a big institution, around 300 per semester. So divided between architecture, fashion, communication, arts and sciences with biology, astronomy, art history, literature, philology, and so on. And then we have all of them with a designed, let's say, curriculum. Just the example of fashion students are spending a week in London, another week in Paris, another week in Milan. So what kind of answers can I give them in this moment? Nothing, zero answers. In other words, no full semester. Then safety measures. So the practical answer that we would need to receive soon are, let's say, two. One, the first is what happens when a student is calling me or my advisors telling that he or she has fever, 38. How can we answer to that question in this moment? We don't have any question on this. So I'm working with Stefania Saccardi to develop a protocol for all the students approved by the MIUR, of course, because every ACOPI program is in the MIUR system. So, but we don't have any family doctor. So trying to find a path so that I can give an answer to the father or the mother who calls me and tells me what is the protocol you're adopting in case my child or my daughter has fever. Second, very important structural, I would say, elements which could serve not only now for the emergency of COVID-19, but also for the future. And I've shared with Marco Del Panta a few hours ago, which is trying to develop a political strategy through which North American students or those who are in our institutions would avoid to go 4 times in the questure for the stay permit procedure. Mm. What am I talking about? France, Spain, Austria, Czech Republic have already launched dispositions to the questure locali, the local police offices, that when the student arrives from America in the country, it is like when the student arrives with a touristic visa. So you know that everyone can enter the country for less than 90 days with no problem of any kind. Should you stay 1 day more than 90 days, you have to enter, being you outside of the European system. Sure. As a citizen, entering the stay permit procedure. All the students in the ACOPI world are perfectly traced by the legal representatives, because I know when my students arrive and I know when they leave. Mm-hmm. So I'm the guarantor for that. This law would save us from many problems, and of course it will give us the chance of, for example, applying for student visas, because of course the student visa procedure won't change, but in a shorter period of time, closer to the semester. Just an example, if my students would have arrived in Florence in the fall 2020, they would have applied to the consulate of Detroit at the end of April. Yeah. Of course, I didn't have any answer what I was talking about before. But let's say that I would have applied. I would have received a yes or no from the consulate, let's say in mid-July. So if I don't have to start the stay permit procedure, so probably we have a chance for talking about the Ministro degli Interni and telling them, okay, please send a message to the Consolati Italiani all'estero that our students are not in the need of starting the stay permit procedure, but they have a so-called declaration of presence reinforced for 150 days. This will generate a lot of resources for the country, a lot of job positions, a lot of money floating into the country. This is a structural solution for the problem. Not for now, but for the future, for the following 20 years, for my daughter.
Great. Thank you very much, Fabrizio. Two very concrete recommendations, one for the short term and one for the long term. And I think I saw Marco already making notes or adding points to the action plan. I think it is something that resonates with many of us. In particular, your institutions are dealing with students from outside the Schengen area, which are in particular vulnerable to bureaucratic procedures that are disrupted at the moment, or institutions that are not even open. It's getting close to 6:30. Marco, I had planned to give you more time, but I hope that you will accept our invitation to continue this conversation, but ending this session today with some reactions or some thoughts from your side. The mayor gave a great introduction of the plans and the ambitions of the city, how to support the higher education community and the enabling international talent to come back to Florence as soon as possible, but also to help the city grow in a sustainable way and make it more resilient after this. Anything to add, any remarks that you would like to share with this group?
Thank you, Frank, for inviting me to this webinar. There's very little to add to what the mayor said. The only thing I can add is that higher education is part of the program of the mayor, and we are trying to implement it. There's what we are trying to do is to coordinate all the initiatives that are taking place in town, and also to imagine some new ones. And this should be also be taken up at political level in a meeting that we were planning in the month of April with the Minister for Research and University, who should have come to Florence. Of course, this political meeting was not possible because of the crisis, of the COVID crisis, but we are planning to have it in a virtual way, maybe in the coming months. We are working on this. So this is just to give a political input to the academic dimension of this town, which is very important. I was very impressed also by your presentation, also from the historical point of view of the, let's say, academic dimension of this town. Coming to concrete problems, I was happy to discuss this morning with Fabrizio and also with the Deputy Mayor, Sara Funaro, about the concrete problems that the students have. We are really struggling to have the students back. Of course, we also look forward to have the tourists back, but I mean, the absence of the students is particularly painful in a town like this one, where, as I said before, I mean, the academic and cultural dimension is one of the priority, and it's part of our history. So I was really keen to discuss these practical problems that we have. I'm an official of the Foreign Ministry. Some years ago, I was director for migration and visa. So I know something about that. It's something in which we really have to work hard. It's not very much an issue for the Foreign Ministry, it's more for the Ministero dell'Interno, for the Interior Ministry. Your idea, Fabrizio, of having a kind of a substitute of the permit of stay or something much lighter to obtain is, in theory, it sounds very well. I know that you have been struggling to have it approved in the past years. So, I mean, I'm keen to try to help you to obtain this, because, I mean, we are competing in a very competitive, globalized market. And so we have to be competitive. Otherwise, I mean, we will lose. I'm not talking about market shares here. We're not talking about economy. We're talking about culture, about academics. So as I said this morning, we will be working very hard on this. We are planning with Deputy Mayor Funaro a meeting already next week. We will inform the mayor, of course, who is listening to us, but we need a political impetus on this, because these are the problems to be solved. Let me add something which George already said. We have to give a more positive image about the condition, about the environment of this town. The issue of the health system is very important. There are some statistics of the WHO according to which the Italian system is one of the best in the world. This is something which is unknown even to the Italians. Of course, it's a very unbalanced situation. It's not the same between Bolzano and, I don't know, L'Aquila and Grosseto. But still, I mean, in average, it's one of the best in the world. It's something which is not known. We should let it know. And this is, let's say, they are taking the point of view of the quality. Maybe the administrative aspects are less brilliant, but we have to solve also those aspects. So I'm very happy to hear that Fabrizio is already in contact with the Assessore Regionale, with Assessore Saccardi, because that's a competence of the region. And if we can do anything from the point of view of the municipality, of course, we will be keen to do it, but we need to have, as the mayor said, a campaign of information about the situation in this country, in this town, and to create the best condition to have the students back. That's something which is really a priority for the municipality.
Great. Well, thank you very much on those notes. I think also from, if I speak on behalf of the student housing providers in Florence, and we're many with different types of offering, I think if we can play a role also in reassuring that there is great places for people to live and to, when they stay or come to Florence, that this can also be part of the plan, and that we can help you with that in any capacity. But I think for this moment, this was a great conversation about many things that are really rather urgent. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the mayor especially for taking time to join us and to inspire us with this framework that many of us will be able to work and contribute to, but also to benefit on the short term and the long term. Michelle and Garrett, thank you for sharing. I hope this was also inspirational and a learning exercise here, joining this amazing city, and I can assure you it's a wonderful city to learn, to study, but also to relax after this crisis. Maybe we all need a little break. Andrea, would you like to wrap it up? Maybe also say a few words to, there was one question also on the student hotel,
Yeah.
and I hope to see everybody soon again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just very quickly, there was a question that came in around how has the student hotel adopted its safety and distancing measures, and also how we're addressing this for our students and parents. Well, the biggest thing is that we never closed. So we've been open throughout the entire pandemic. We wanted to be open. We decided to stay open for our community, and not only here in Firenze, but in all of our locations throughout Europe. Many students were told to go home and some left, but many students wanted to stay. And so with that, we turned our very sort of vivacious community, we turned it all online. And so that way students did not have to isolate themselves. They didn't feel alone, and they could enjoy the sense of community that the student hotel is known for. Here locally in Firenze, our general manager, Salvatore, made sure that all the students were safe and quickly enacted all the safety measures that we needed to have in terms of sanitizing stations, in terms of making sure that anyone who comes through our building has auto-certifies that they do not have, that are not positive with COVID-19. We're really enforcing single occupancy rooms so that students are not in any twin shared rooms, and a host of other measures that we will continue to keep in place to make sure that we are in alignment with the government and also the local health authorities. So again, thank you. If there's any other questions around this, obviously you all know where to find me. But we hope to continue this conversation because it's just the first of many that we want to address with all of you. And normally we would all meet up on our beautiful terrazza here in the hotel, and obviously that is not possible now, but we hope to be able to return to that type of meeting as well soon enough. So thank you all, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.